A perfectly crafted object sits silently from an age it should not belong to. We are exploring 20 unearthed artifacts with craftsmanship inexplicable for their period. These relics do more than confuse experts. They suggest entire chapters of human knowledge may be missing from our history books. By the end, you will see the timeline of human innovation, not as a straight line, but as a story filled with mysterious gaps and astonishing leaps. How did ancient builders achieve precision that rivals our modern machines, and what forgotten skills allowed them to create what seems impossible? What does our own civilization's progress look like when held against these ancient marvels? We often picture ancient builders with basic copper chisels and stone hammers, creating monumental structures through sheer force and numbers. The official story of technological progress is a neat, upward curve, from simple beginnings to our current complexity. Societies like the Egyptians are praised for their architectural genius, yet we are told they worked without hardened steel, without precision gears, and without the intricate machinery we assume is necessary for such feats. This established narrative makes the artifacts we are about to explore not just surprising, but fundamentally disruptive. They emerge from contexts where their existence should be impossible. The most famous example is the Antikythera Mechanism, a corroded bronze device recovered from an ancient Greek shipwreck. For decades, it was a curious lump of metal until researchers realized it housed a complex assembly of interlocking gears. It was, in essence, an analog computer capable of predicting planetary movements and eclipses with stunning accuracy. This was not a simple calendar. It was a mechanical representation of the heavens, built centuries before such sophistication was thought to exist. Experts like Dr. James Evans point out that a single object like this forces a complete re-evaluation of an entire era. It suggests pockets of advanced technical knowledge that flourished and then, for reasons we can only guess, were lost to time. Perhaps this knowledge was held by a small group of artisans whose secrets died with them, or maybe it was recorded on materials that did not survive the ages. This background of assumed simplicity makes each artifact on our list a profound question mark. They are not merely old objects, they are echoes of a forgotten conversation about what humanity is truly capable of achieving. The Antikythera Mechanism was found encrusted in sea life, a corroded mass pulled from a Roman-era shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera. When a researcher first noticed a gear wheel embedded in the rock-like lump, the true nature of the object began to emerge. It was not a statue or a simple navigational tool, but a complex machine. Dated to around 100 years before the Common Era, this collection of bronze gears represents a technological leap that stands entirely alone. It has been called the world's first known analog computer. The device contained over 30 interlocking gears precisely cut from bronze, some with teeth so fine they rival the intricate clockwork of instruments made more than 1,000 years later. Researchers like Michael Wright have spent decades creating physical models to understand its function. They found it was a mechanical cosmos, a portable universe inside a box. By turning a hand crank, an user could see the predicted movements of the sun and moon, the phases of the lunar cycle, and even the timing of upcoming eclipses. It modeled the irregular orbit of the moon with a sophisticated gear train that accounted for its varying speed, a feature of celestial mechanics that would not be formally described again for centuries. The existence of such a device implies a deep, working knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and precision engineering. Yet no other artifact like it has ever been found from the ancient Greek world. How could such sophisticated mechanical knowledge appear fully formed and then vanish so completely from the historical record for over a millennium. This single artifact forces us to question not just what the ancient Greeks knew, but how that knowledge was preserved or ultimately how it was lost. While the Antikythera Mechanism was a complex computer for the skies, another artifact from a different civilization hints at a mastery of invisible forces right here on Earth. In the collections of the National Museum of Iraq sits a simple-looking clay jar, no larger than a hand, discovered in the 1930s near Baghdad. This unassuming pot was dated to the Parthian or Sassanid period, a time spanning from roughly 250 years before the Common Era to 250 years after. Its mundane appearance, however, hides a fascinating secret. Inside the jar, researchers found a copper cylinder, and within that, an iron rod suspended by an asphalt plug. To an engineer, this configuration looks strikingly familiar. If the jar was filled with an acidic liquid, something as common as vinegar or wine, the entire assembly could function as a simple chemical battery, producing a small but measurable electric current. The discovery was popularized by German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig. He conducted experiments that demonstrated the vessel's potential, showing it could generate just over 1 volt of electricity. This is not enough to power a light, but it is sufficient for tasks like electroplating, where a thin layer of metal, such as gold, is transferred onto the surface of another object. A handful of silver artifacts from the same region show a type of gilding that some researchers argue could have been achieved through such an electrochemical process. Others suggest the current might have been used for a different purpose entirely, perhaps as a source of mild, tingling sensation in religious ceremonies, giving a physical sensation to a spiritual experience. Yet, this is where the mystery truly deepens. No wires, no other batteries, and no clear documentation of electrical theory have been found from that era. The Baghdad Battery stands as a solitary, brilliant, and deeply perplexing data point. Why would such a device exist in isolation? It suggests a spark of experimentation, a fleeting grasp of electrochemical principles that was either not widely shared or not fully understood even by its creators. It challenges the comfortable idea that humanity's journey with electricity began with figures like Benjamin Franklin and Alessandro Volta in the 18th century. This clay pot implies that the fundamental curiosity required to harness a basic electric current flickered to life centuries, even millennia, earlier. Was it a forgotten invention or merely a curiosity that never found its ultimate application? The battery offers no easy answers, only a quiet challenge to our assumptions about the linear path of scientific discovery. A spark plug encased in solid rock seems like a scene from a science fiction story, yet that is precisely what 3 rock hounds claimed to discover in the mountains of California in 1961. They were searching for geodes, those hollow stones that often reveal beautiful crystal interiors. What they split open, however, was far more puzzling. Inside a hardened lump of what appeared to be a geode was a circular object with a metal core and a ceramic insulator, looking unmistakably like a modern spark plug. The initial excitement came from a geologist who estimated the surrounding rock could be 500,000 years old, a date that would make the embedded object impossibly ancient. This was the birth of the Koso artifact mystery. How could a piece of 20th century technology become sealed inside a stone that took millennia to form? The immediate and most tantalizing theory pointed to a lost advanced civilization, or even visitors from beyond our world, leaving behind a piece of their machinery. The idea captured the public imagination, suggesting our planet's history might be far stranger than we ever learned in school. Yet, scientific inquiry soon offered more grounded, though still complex, explanations. Later analysis, including a detailed examination, suggested the object was not a geode at all but a hardened concretion, a lump of minerals that can form relatively quickly around a pre-existing object. The spark plug itself was identified by collectors as a model from the 1920s, a champion brand plug that was common in early automobiles. This seemed to solve the mystery, labeling it a simple modern object found inside a naturally formed rock case, but the debate was not entirely over. The core question remained: how did this specific spark plug become the nucleus for such a perfect and convincing stone shell? The processes of concretion are not fully understood and can sometimes occur in unexpectedly short timeframes under the right mineral-rich conditions. This artifact, therefore, stands as a powerful lesson in how we interpret the past. It reminds us that anomalies can often be explained by a combination of natural phenomena and human error, yet the very existence of such debates is crucial. They force us to hold two ideas in balance: a healthy skepticism that demands evidence, and an open-mindedness that allows for the possibility that the story of our world still has unexpected chapters waiting to be read. The spark plug encased in stone challenges our timeline with industrial age technology, but a delicate wooden artifact from Egypt suggests the dream of flight itself may be far older. Discovered in a tomb at Saqqara and dated to around 200 years before the Common Era, this small object is known simply as the Saqqara Bird. At first glance, it looks like a stylized bird figurine, a common find in ancient burial sites. But its proportions are unusual. The wings are not shaped like those of a bird in flight. They are straight, angled, and perfectly horizontal, more reminiscent of a modern aircraft's wings than the flapping limbs of a falcon or dove. The tail is equally strange. It stands vertically like the stabilizer on a glider and lacks any horizontal surface that would represent a bird's tail feathers. This unique configuration caught the eye of Egyptian doctor and archaeologist Khalil Messiha in the 1970s. He was not the first to see it, but he was the first to truly question its form. To Messiha, this was not a toy or a simple religious offering. It was a model of something designed to fly. The implications were staggering. Could the ancient Egyptians have understood the basic principles of aerodynamics? To test this hypothesis, modern aerodynamics experts constructed precise replicas of the Saqqara Bird. When launched with a gentle throw, the models did something remarkable: they flew. The artifact demonstrated stable gliding capabilities, its unique wing shape providing the necessary lift. Of course, many Egyptologists maintain it was a ceremonial object, perhaps a child's toy or a representation of a bird of prey, its unusual tail simply broken or stylized over time. They point out there is no direct evidence of full-scale flying machines in the archaeological record, yet the aerodynamic performance is difficult to dismiss as pure chance. The design choices that enable its flight are too specific. This raises a profound question about the nature of ancient innovation. Were the Egyptians master architects and astronomers, also tinkerers who observed the wind and tested the sky? Perhaps the knowledge was not written down in complex equations, but held in the hands of craftsmen who learned through trial and error. Hieroglyphic texts speak of flying vehicles in mythological contexts, but what if those stories were not pure fantasy? What if they were poetic echoes of real, if rudimentary, experiments? The Saqqara Bird sits at the intersection of practical science and spiritual symbolism, a silent wooden testament to a possibility, a fleeting glimpse of an idea that, for reasons lost to time, never truly took off. A wooden bird from Egypt hints at dreams of flight, but a map drawn on gazelle skin presents a geographical riddle of even greater scope. In 1513, Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis compiled a world map that has confounded historians ever since. It shows the coastlines of South America and even the northern edge of a southern continent with a detail that seems to defy the era's understanding of the world. The map's depiction of the Americas is impressive enough for its time, but its most baffling feature lies far to the south. It portrays a landmass that many believe to be Antarctica, and not just its general shape, but its coastline, remarkably free of the mile-thick ice sheet that has covered the continent for millions of years. This is a detail that modern science, using seismic and radar technology, only confirmed in the 20th century. How could a 16th century cartographer have known what lay beneath that impenetrable ice? One compelling theory, championed by scholars like Charles Hapgood, suggests that Piri Reis was not working from original explorations, but was instead copying from much older source maps. These original charts, the theory goes, were created by a seafaring civilization with advanced knowledge of the world's geography, a culture that mapped the Antarctic coastline when it was last ice-free, a time that pushes this hypothetical civilization back thousands upon thousands of years. Piri Reis himself wrote notes on the map, stating he had consulted numerous source maps, including some he described as dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Skeptics argue the southern land could be a speculative addition, a lucky guess based on the assumption that a large southern continent must exist to balance the northern landmasses. They also point to potential distortions, suggesting the coastline might be a misdrawn version of South America. Yet, the precision in longitude and latitude on parts of the map remains difficult to explain away. This single piece of parchment forces us to confront an uncomfortable possibility: that the age of exploration as we know it was not the beginning of global cartography, but perhaps a rediscovery of it. Were the oceans crossed by forgotten mariners whose maps later found their way into the hands of an Ottoman admiral? The Piri Reis map does not give us answers, but it opens a window onto a vast and silent ocean of lost history, a reminder that the world was known far better by someone long before we ever thought it was. While maps charted the known world, a different kind of mystery was being bound into a book, one that remains a locked room in the library of history. The Voynich Manuscript is a handwritten codex from the 15th century, filled from edge to edge with text in an alphabet that does not exist and illustrations of plants that no one has ever been able to identify. Carbon dating confirms it was created in the early 1400s, but its origin, author, and most importantly, its meaning, have been completely lost to time. The pages are a beautiful, frustrating puzzle. They show delicate drawings of herbal specimens with roots and leaves that seem almost familiar yet belong to no known species, alongside intricate astronomical charts featuring celestial bodies in configurations that do not match our night sky. There are also illustrations of small, unclothed figures, depicted in a manner that is purely diagrammatic and ceremonial, seemingly involved in a process near vessels that resemble baths, suggesting a focus on well-being or a spiritual practice. This is not a simple journal, it is a systematic presentation of a complete but entirely unknown system of knowledge. The text itself is the core of the enigma. It is written in a script of about 25 to 30 unique characters, flowing in a pattern that resembles a real language, with word lengths and sentence structures that feel grammatical and intentional. Yet for over a century, the world's top cryptographers have tried and failed to find a key. William Friedman, one of the greatest code breakers of the 20th century, who helped decipher Japanese military codes during the Second World War, dedicated a significant part of his later career to the Voynich. He and his team of expert analysts applied every tool they had, from frequency analysis to complex statistical models, yet the manuscript yielded nothing. It resisted methods that had cracked wartime ciphers, its patterns just different enough from any known human language to be utterly impenetrable. This relentless defiance is what gives the Voynich its profound allure. The theories about its purpose are as varied as they are compelling. Was it an elaborate and very expensive hoax created to dupe a wealthy patron? This would explain the consistent yet meaningless text, but then why fill hundreds of pages with such painstaking, bizarre detail? Or was it a coded alchemical or herbal treatise meant to protect precious, perhaps forbidden, knowledge from falling into the wrong hands? This idea captures the imagination, suggesting the book holds real secrets about nature or the cosmos, waiting for the right person to finally understand its cipher. The Voynich Manuscript is more than a book, it is a mirror. It reflects our own deep-seated desire to find meaning, to decode the universe, and to recover lost wisdom. It pushes against the limits of historical interpretation, reminding us that some doors from the past remain firmly closed, not for a lack of trying, but because the key was made for a lock we have yet to discover. Deep within the river deltas of Costa Rica, hundreds of stone spheres lay scattered as if giants had abandoned a cosmic game of marbles. Ranging from the size of a melon to colossal orbs over 6 feet in diameter, these granite and limestone balls were crafted by a pre-Columbian people between 300 years before the Common Era and 300 years after. Their existence is a monument to patience and an almost obsessive pursuit of perfection. The true marvel lies in their geometry, a spherical precision so exact that measurements reveal deviations of less than a single centimeter across massive surfaces. How is such symmetry possible from a society that, as far as we know, worked without metal tools or advanced measuring devices? The process likely began with finding a suitable boulder, then using heat to fracture it, followed by the meticulous work of hammering with other, harder stones to slowly chip away at the form. But the final polishing, the achievement of that near-flawless curve, remains deeply mysterious. Some researchers suggest a system of lashing logs around the stone and using sand and water in a relentless grinding process that could have taken generations for the largest spheres. Others propose they were shaped by being rolled repeatedly in a curved stone cradle, a method requiring immense effort and a profound understanding of geometry. Their purpose is just as enigmatic. Were they astronomical markers aligned to chart the movements of the sun and stars? Could they have been symbols of social status or power, arranged in patterns around the homes of influential leaders? The spheres were often found in groups, sometimes in straight lines or forming great triangles and parallelograms across the landscape. This deliberate placement hints at a meaning that is now lost, a silent language written in the earth with perfect stone circles. They stand as a powerful testament to a simple truth, that technological sophistication is not always defined by complex machinery. It can reside in the unwavering human will to impose perfect order on a resistant world, to shape stone into sphere through nothing but sheer determination and an intuitive grasp of form. These spheres are not just artifacts, they are the physical embodiment of an idea, a demonstration that sophistication in execution can far outpace the apparent simplicity of the tools used to achieve it. While the stone spheres of Costa Rica represent a mastery of form, a monument in India reveals an even more profound control over the very substance of the material world. The Iron Pillar of Delhi rises over 23 feet from the ground, a single, seamless column of wrought iron that has withstood the elements for more than 1,600 years. In a country with distinct wet and dry seasons, this ancient metal shows almost no sign of the rust that should have consumed it centuries ago. It stands not as a corroded relic, but as a gleaming testament to a forgotten science. The secret was uncovered through modern analysis, which revealed a thin, protective film that has shielded the iron. This is not a later coating or a result of pure luck. It is a deliberate and sophisticated barrier formed by the pillar's own unique chemical composition. The iron contains a surprisingly high amount of phosphorus, while having very little sulfur and manganese. This specific recipe, achieved during the initial smelting process, encourages the formation of a passive layer that bonds to the metal, a shield that actually grows stronger over time, healing minor scratches and preventing the spread of corrosion. This level of metallurgical precision is difficult to achieve even with our modern industrial furnaces. How did 4th century blacksmiths accomplish this? The process likely involved heating and hammering large masses of iron in a forge, repeatedly working the material to squeeze out impurities. But to infuse it with just the right amount of phosphorus, they must have mastered a specific and consistent technique, perhaps using a particular type of iron ore or a unique charcoal fuel that introduced the crucial element. The pillar itself bears an inscription naming King Chandragupta II, suggesting it was created to commemorate a great victory or to serve as a standard for a deity. Yet the true marvel is not the king it honors, but the anonymous artisans who forged it. They possessed a hands-on, practical knowledge of chemistry that seems to defy their era. They were not just metalworkers, they were early materials scientists, manipulating the atomic structure of iron to grant it a form of immortality. This single pillar challenges our entire narrative of progress in metallurgy. It suggests that certain peaks of technical achievement were reached, lost, and are only now being fully understood and appreciated once again. What other secrets of durability and sustainability might be locked within the artifacts of the ancient world, waiting to teach us how to build things that truly last? High on the arid plains of Peru, a desert canvas stretches for hundreds of square miles, bearing artworks so immense they can only be comprehended from the sky. The Nazca Lines are a collection of hundreds of geoglyphs, etched into the rocky desert floor by the Nazca people between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after. They are not small markings, but sprawling depictions of a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider with perfectly articulated legs, a monkey with a coiled tail, and geometric shapes that form vast trapezoids and arrow straight lines running to the horizon. The sheer scale is staggering, with some individual lines continuing for over 30 miles without a single detectable curve or waver. This precision presents an immediate and practical puzzle. How did the artists achieve such flawless proportions and alignment when the full image was invisible to them, hidden on the ground upon which they stood? The most accepted theories suggest the Nazca used simple and brilliant surveying techniques. They could have constructed small-scale models and then used a system of ropes and stakes to transfer the design to the vast desert floor, enlarging it step by measured step. By maintaining consistent angles and perhaps using cleared pathways as sightlines, they could create these monumental figures without ever leaving the earth. Some researchers propose the lines were aligned with celestial bodies, the sun or specific star clusters, using the heavens themselves as a guide for their terrestrial art. Yet the question of purpose remains even more elusive than the question of method. Why would a society invest such tremendous communal effort, generation after generation, into creating art that they themselves could never fully see? The most common interpretation is a spiritual one, that the lines were sacred pathways, walked during rituals to call upon deities, perhaps prayers for water in an unforgiving landscape. The figures might have served as offerings to gods in the sky, or as mythological symbols connecting the people to the cosmos. Other theories suggest the lines formed a massive astronomical calendar, marking solstices and seasonal changes vital for agriculture, or that they traced underground water sources. The true meaning is likely a complex tapestry of all these ideas, a profound expression of a culture that saw no separation between the earth they walked on and the heavens they worshipped. The Nazca Lines challenge our most basic assumptions about art and communication. They were not meant for a human audience, but for something grander, a message written on the planet itself, intended for the eyes of the gods or the indifferent passage of time. They remind us that human ingenuity is not always driven by practical need, but often by a deep, unshakable desire to reach for the sky, to make a mark so large that it can only be understood from a perspective beyond our own. The vast, silent figures of the Nazca Desert speak to a culture looking skyward, but a far smaller object, unearthed from deep within the earth, suggests a timeline that seems impossibly tangled. Known as the London Hammer, this simple tool was discovered in Texas in 1936, and its context was anything but simple. It was found completely encased in a hard Cretaceous rock layer, a geological formation dated to well over 100 million years ago. The hammer itself looks like something from a 19th century blacksmith shop with a wooden handle and a solid iron head. Yet according to the stone that held it, it should not exist. Scientific analysis only deepened the mystery. The iron of the hammerhead was found to be of remarkable purity, lacking the bubbles and slag inclusions typical of historical ironworking. Even more strangely, the wooden handle was partially coalified, a process where organic material transforms towards coal, suggesting it was subjected to immense pressure and age over a vast period. The immediate, skeptical explanation is that this is a case of concretion, where a relatively recent hammer became lodged in a crevice and was then enveloped by minerals that hardened around it, creating the illusion of great age. But for many, this does not fully resolve the puzzle. The hammer was found within solid rock, not just lying on the ground, and the process of coalification of the wood points to a genuinely ancient timeline. This single artifact forces us to confront questions that challenge our very understanding of history. Could it be evidence of a vastly advanced prehistoric human culture that existed alongside the dinosaurs, a civilization whose tools were lost to deep time? Or does it point to a more complex geological process, one where certain minerals can form concretions with astonishing speed under specific, rare conditions, fooling our methods of dating? The London Hammer does not offer a definitive answer, and perhaps that is its greatest value. It stands as a permanent reminder that the past is not a neatly sealed book. It is a collection of stories, some of which we can read clearly, and others, like this hammer in the stone, where the pages are stuck together, daring us to find a way to carefully, thoughtfully pry them apart. A story from the high mountains of China presents a mystery that has long since crossed from archaeology into legend. In 1938, an archaeologist named Kai Pute is said to have discovered a series of burial caves in the remote Bayan Karaula Mountains. Inside, he found the remains of individuals with unusually shaped skeletons, and alongside them, hundreds of stone discs, each with a hole in its center and a spiral groove leading from the center to the rim. These were the Dropa Stones. The initial reports were strange enough, but the legend grew when a researcher claimed to have deciphered the minuscule hieroglyphics etched into the grooves. The translated story was astonishing. It told of a group of beings, the Dropa, whose spacecraft crashed in the mountains thousands of years ago, unable to return home. The local Ham people, the story goes, are their descendants. This narrative is a compelling blend of ancient astronauts and a lost chapter of human history, a tale that has fueled countless books and documentaries. Yet the entire story rests on a foundation that has crumbled under scrutiny. No museum holds a verified Dropa stone. The original reports are murky and unverified, and the skeletal remains described have never been produced for modern analysis. Most mainstream archaeologists dismiss the entire account as an elaborate hoax, a story born from misidentified Neolithic artifacts and amplified by a desire for a more fantastical past. This is where the true power of the Dropa stones lies, not as a physical artifact, but as a cultural one. They highlight a deep and enduring human need for our history to be grander, for there to be visitors from the stars and lost civilizations that explain our origins. Why do we cling to such tales, even in the face of overwhelming skepticism? They offer a sense of wonder, a possibility that the universe is not empty and that our past is more extraordinary than we ever dreamed. The Dropa stones serve as a perfect cautionary tale, reminding us that the line between fact and fiction is often blurred not by the evidence itself, but by our profound longing for the unknown. A single silver coin, weathered by time, rests where it should not be. Discovered at a Native American settlement in Maine, this small artifact is a Norse penny, dated to the 11th century. Its presence on the other side of the Atlantic, centuries before the voyages of Columbus, whispers of a much earlier, fleeting connection between two worlds. The coin itself is unassuming, but its journey is a profound historical puzzle. How did an object minted in Norway end up deep within the North American continent, nestled among the tools and hearths of the Wabanaki people? The most direct explanation points to the Norse sagas, the epic tales of Viking explorers like Leif Erikson, who established a small settlement at Elance Ox Meadows in Newfoundland around the year 1000. This penny could be physical proof of that very contact, a lost piece of silver from a Norse trader's pouch. Yet the site in Maine is far south of the known Viking settlements. This opens another possibility, that the coin did not come directly from a Norse hand, but traveled south through extensive indigenous trade networks that crisscrossed the continent. It could have been a treasured curiosity, passed from tribe to tribe over hundreds of miles, its origin story fading with each exchange until it became simply a shiny, foreign object. This theory, while less romantic, is perhaps even more revealing. It suggests that the Americas were not a sealed continent waiting for European discovery, but a dynamic, interconnected landscape with its own long-distance routes of exchange. The debate among archaeologists is not just about the coin's path, but about what its existence truly signifies. Does it represent a brief, failed attempt at settlement? Or does it highlight the vibrant and far-reaching trade systems that were already in place, systems capable of moving a single coin from the coast of Canada to the forests of Maine? The Maine penny challenges the old textbook narrative of a new world isolated from the old. It paints a picture of occasional, accidental meetings, of cultural lines crossing and then receding, leaving behind only a handful of clues. This small piece of silver is a testament to the unpredictable nature of history, reminding us that the map of the human past is filled with faint, almost erased lines of connection that we are only just beginning to trace. A simple linen cloth holds one of history's most debated and haunting images. The Shroud of Turin appears to be a medieval burial cloth, bearing the faint, straw-colored imprint of a man who appears to have endured physical hardship. For many of the faithful, this is not just an artifact, it is a sacred relic, believed by some to be the actual burial shroud of a significant historical figure. The image itself is bafflingly detailed, showing the front and back of a tall individual with features that are remarkably clear. Yet the real mystery is not just what it depicts, but how the image was created at all. It is not painted with any known pigment, dye, or stain. Instead, the coloration is a chemical change only on the very topmost fibers of the thread, as if the linen itself was lightly scorched in a perfect, three-dimensional representation of a human form. Even more striking, the image functions like a photographic negative. When first photographed in 1898, the negative plate revealed a startlingly positive and lifelike portrait, a level of detail completely invisible to the naked eye. This discovery catapulted the shroud from a religious curiosity into a full-blown scientific enigma. How could a medieval artist create a perfect negative image centuries before the invention of photography? Radiocarbon dating conducted by 3 independent laboratories in the late 1980s placed the cloth's origin between 1260 and 1390. This medieval date seems to settle the matter, pointing to a clever, if inexplicable, forgery. Yet, the scientific debate did not end there. Researchers have since questioned whether the samples tested could have been contaminated by centuries of handling, smoke from a fire, or even microbial growth, potentially skewing the results. The image's precise mechanism of transfer remains equally unresolved. Proposals range from a natural chemical reaction between linen and the compounds released by a body, to some form of early, unknown photographic technique, or even a release of energy. Each theory, however, struggles to account for the image's perfect three-dimensional data and its lack of any directional brushstrokes or applied substances. This is why the shroud endures as a profound point of collision between faith and science. For some, it is a tangible connection to a foundational story, an object that seems to defy mere human explanation. For others, it is a brilliant, unsolved puzzle from the Middle Ages, a testament to a lost artistic or alchemical process. The Shroud of Turin ultimately asks us a deeper question about the nature of evidence itself. Can an object be both scientifically perplexing and spiritually significant? It challenges the very boundaries of how we seek truth, reminding us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but to be pondered, holding a mirror to our deepest questions about history, belief, and the limits of our understanding. Deep within the dark stone corridors of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, a series of enigmatic carvings cover the walls. Etched around 50 years before the Common Era, these bas-reliefs show what appear to be massive, elongated bulbs, each containing a snake-like form stretching from a central box to a socket held by a priest. To a modern eye, the resemblance to a sophisticated electrical apparatus is startling, complete with what could be cables and insulators. This is the so-called Dendera light, an image that has sparked intense debate between conventional archaeology and alternative history. Mainstream Egyptologists offer a compelling symbolic interpretation. They explain that the objects are more likely giant lotus flowers from which a divine serpent is emerging, representing a fundamental creation myth. The entire scene is a spiritual tableau depicting the moment of cosmic birth from a primordial waters, with the serpent as a manifestation of the god Harsomptis. The supporting figures are not engineers but deities and priests engaged in a sacred ritual. The cables are explained as ritual ropes or stylized lotus stems, and the socket as a symbolic womb or bud. This interpretation fits seamlessly within the known framework of Egyptian religious art, where every element is rich with layered meaning. Yet, the visual parallel to electrical technology is so uncanny that it begs a deeper question about how we perceive the past. If we did not live in a world illuminated by light bulbs, would this interpretation even occur to us? The controversy highlights the immense challenge of viewing ancient art through a modern lens. Our own technological context can act as a powerful filter, causing us to see literal innovation where the original artists intended profound spiritual allegory. It forces us to consider whether we are discovering their advanced knowledge or simply projecting our own. This does not completely close the door on mystery, however. The precision of the imagery remains a persistent echo that challenges us to wonder if myth itself could sometimes be a language for describing real, but poorly understood, natural phenomena or even lost techniques. The Dendera carvings ultimately serve as a lesson in humility, reminding us that the past communicates in a vocabulary of symbols we are still learning to fully decipher. Buried alongside the bones of ancient giants, a metal wedge seemed to defy every law of historical progress. Known as the Aiud Artifact, this object was unearthed in Romania in 1974, discovered deep in a trench beneath a thick layer of mastodon bones, creatures that vanished from the earth over 10,000 years ago. The wedge itself was heavy, surprisingly light in color, and made of a metal that should not have existed in that context, aluminum. This is not a metal found pure in nature. It requires an incredibly complex industrial process to separate it from its ore. The Hall-Héroult process, which uses a powerful electric current in a bath of molten cryolite, was only developed in the late 19th century. So how could a refined aluminum object end up entombed with prehistoric animals? The immediate and thrilling speculation pointed to a forgotten advanced civilization, one that possessed knowledge of metallurgy thousands of years before anyone else, or even to visitors from beyond our world who may have left a piece of their technology behind. The artifact became a flashpoint for grand, sweeping theories about our past. Yet, science demands a more measured approach. The initial context was compelling, but the possibility of contamination is a constant challenge in archaeology. Could this wedge have been a piece of modern machinery, perhaps a tooth from an excavator bucket or a drilling tool, that simply fell into the older sediment layers, creating a false association with the mastodon remains? This is where rigorous testing becomes essential. To resolve the mystery, researchers could perform a detailed analysis of the patina, the thin layer that forms on metal as it ages. A patina that matches the mineral composition of the surrounding soil and shows thousands of years of micro-layer development would support its ancient origin. They could also test the aluminum's specific alloy composition, as modern industrial aluminum often contains precise traces of other metals like magnesium or silicon, whereas a hypothetical ancient sample might have a different, purer, or more primitive signature. The Aiud artifact stands as a perfect case study in the tension between breathtaking possibility and sober scientific scrutiny. It reminds us that a single, unexplained object can ignite our imagination, suggesting entire lost chapters of human history, but it is only through meticulous, repeatable testing that we can hope to separate the truly revolutionary find from a simple, though fascinating, mistake. This small metal wedge challenges not just our timeline, but our very methods for uncovering the truth. A single slab of greywacke stone, pulled from the roots of a Minnesota poplar tree, carries a message that has divided scholars for over a century. The Kensington Runestone, discovered by a Swedish immigrant farmer in 1898, is inscribed with runic letters that tell a harrowing tale. It describes a group of 8 Goths and 22 Norwegians on a voyage of exploration from Vinland, who made camp by 2 rocky islets one day's journey to the north. The inscription, dated 1362, then turns grim, stating that 10 of their men were left by the sea to look after their ships, and that this group of explorers was out fishing one day, only to return and find their companions dead, red with blood. It ends with a plea for rescue. If authentic, this stone would rewrite the history of Norse presence in North America, pushing their exploration deep into the continent a full 130 years after the Viking settlement at Elands Ox Meadows and over a century before Columbus. The immediate academic response was one of deep skepticism. Linguists pointed out that the runic alphabet used contained a mix of styles from different periods and regions, and the language itself seemed anachronistic, a blend of Old Norse and modern Swedish that was unlikely for the 14th century. The very existence of such an inland expedition, so far from any other evidence, seemed to stretch credulity. For many, the stone was a clever, if elaborate, hoax, likely carved by the farmer or someone in his community, a product of the intense Scandinavian immigrant culture that sought to plant its own deep roots in the New World soil. Yet the stone has stubbornly refused to be dismissed so easily. Geologists who have examined the weathering in the inscriptions, the way the stone itself has worn over time, argue that the carving shows signs of significant age, far more than the few years it would have had if carved in the late 1800s. This scientific counter-argument creates a fascinating standoff, pitting the analysis of language against the analysis of stone. Why would someone go to such lengths to create a forgery? The motives could range from a simple desire for fame or notoriety to a more profound, almost poetic yearning to connect the old world with the new, to inscribe a story of Scandinavian heroism directly onto the American landscape. The Kensington Runestone embodies a conflict that lies at the very heart of archaeology, the tension between the incredible discovery we long to find and the sober evidence we are forced to accept. It challenges us to scrutinize not just the artifact, but our own powerful desire for the past to be more dramatic, more interconnected, and more mysterious than it might actually be. Yet the mastery of the Inca stonemasons presents a different kind of puzzle, one built not on delicate mechanisms but on immense, overwhelming scale. High in the Peruvian Andes, the walls of Sacsayhuaman Fortress rise like a puzzle box for giants. Constructed in the 15th century, these ramparts are formed from colossal limestone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons. Their sheer mass is staggering, but it is their precision that truly defies belief. Each polygonal stone was individually shaped to fit perfectly against its neighbors in a complex, interlocking jigsaw. The joints are so exact that, even after centuries of earthquakes, you cannot force a razor blade between them. This is a level of masonry that seems to demand computer-controlled cutting, yet it was achieved with stone hammers and bronze tools. How did they do it? The most enduring theory involves a process of trial and error where a block was painstakingly shaped, placed, then removed and reshaped again and again until the fit was flawless. Some researchers suggest they might have used a technique involving heat, perhaps from the sun, to slightly soften the stone surface for shaping. Others propose intricate systems of ramps, ropes, and levers, harnessing the power of hundreds of workers to nudge these behemoths into place. The true method, a blend of physics, geometry, and raw human effort, is a secret the walls have kept. They stand not just as a fortification, but as a testament to a communal will, a society that could mobilize its people to achieve the seemingly impossible. What engineering insight allowed them to create structures that have withstood the test of time so perfectly? The answer is lost, but the walls remain, a silent and humbling lesson in what can be accomplished when human ingenuity is applied with relentless patience. Deep within the ancient rock of South African mines, workers have pulled metallic spheres from a layer dating back over 2 billion years. Known as the Klerksdorp Spheres, these objects are most often composed of hematite or pyrite. They are generally small enough to hold in your hand, but their surfaces are marked with fine, parallel grooves that run perfectly around their equators. The symmetry of these lines feels deliberate, as if machined by a tool. This startling regularity has led to extraordinary speculation, suggesting they could be artifacts from a time before multicellular life even existed on our planet. Could they be evidence of a prehistoric industrial civilization, or perhaps something even more unfathomable? Geologists, however, offer a more grounded, though no less fascinating, explanation. They propose these spheres are concretions, formed naturally when minerals precipitate from water and slowly build up around a central nucleus like a grain of sand, layer by layer over immense periods. Under specific conditions of pressure and chemistry, these layers can crystallize in a way that creates a grooved pattern as the concretion forms. The debate hinges on a single, profound question. Where do we draw the line between a remarkable natural formation and a deliberately made object? The grooves appear too orderly to be purely random, yet no tool marks or other signs of manufacture have been conclusively identified. These spheres exist in a gray area of interpretation, forcing us to confront the limits of our own perception. When we look into the deep past, our modern minds, conditioned by technology and design, are quick to see intention. But the natural world is itself a master of complex, repeating patterns, from the spiral of a galaxy to the hexagons of a honeycomb. The Klerksdorp Spheres challenge us to refine our definitions and to acknowledge that nature's workshop is capable of producing wonders that can, for a time, appear impossibly man-made. They are a humbling reminder that the further back we look, the more the familiar categories of artifact and oddity begin to merge into a single, mysterious story. High in the jungle canopy, the stone ruins of Cholum stand as a testament to a different kind of architectural genius. The Mayan corbelled arch, perfected around the year 1200, is a masterpiece of calculated stability. Unlike the graceful, curved arches of the Romans that distribute weight outward and downward, the Maya built upwards and inwards. Their method used stepped, overlapping stone blocks, each one projecting slightly further toward the center until the gap at the top could be sealed with a single capstone. It is a structure that seems to defy gravity through sheer geometric will. How did these builders, without our modern understanding of physics, so perfectly calculate the stresses and strains within their stone? They were masters of their environment, working with the local limestone and an intimate knowledge of the forces that would act upon their creations. The region is prone to seismic activity, and the corbelled arch, with its interlocking step design, possesses a natural flexibility. During an earth tremor, the stones can shift and settle minutely without causing a catastrophic collapse, a feature a true Roman arch might not have survived. This was not a primitive attempt at a rounded arch. It was a brilliant, independent solution to the same fundamental challenge: how to create an open space within a stone building. It reveals a path of innovation that was entirely their own, developed in isolation from the architectural traditions of Europe or Asia. The endurance of these structures for over 8 centuries speaks to the profound effectiveness of their unique approach. They remind us that human ingenuity is not a single, linear path, but a vast and branching tree, where cultures can arrive at equally stunning and durable solutions by listening to the specific whispers of their own landscape and materials. These small, shimmering gold objects from ancient Colombia hold a shape that feels startlingly familiar. Crafted by the Quimbaya culture around 1,000 years ago, these artifacts possess a sleek fuselage, a distinct set of wings, and a vertical tail fin that looks engineered for flight. To a modern eye, they are undeniably reminiscent of fixed-wing aircraft, a form that would not be invented for another 9 centuries. This uncanny resemblance has sparked a compelling debate, one that pits conventional archaeology against a more speculative interpretation. Mainstream scholars identify the figures as highly stylized representations of animals, perhaps birds, insects, or even flying fish. They point to the rich zoomorphic tradition in pre-Columbian art, where artists often abstracted and exaggerated natural forms for spiritual or decorative purposes. The so-called fuselage could be a stylized body, the wings could be fins or outstretched limbs, and the tail a simplified representation of feathers or a tail. This explanation places the objects comfortably within their known cultural context, as sacred offerings or symbols of power. Yet, the mystery took a dramatic turn when these gold models were subjected to aerodynamic testing. Enthusiasts built precise, scaled-up replicas and launched them. To the surprise of many, the models flew. They demonstrated stable gliding capabilities, their form generating lift and maintaining a smooth trajectory. This empirical result fuels the fascinating, if controversial, theory that the Quimbaya artisans were not merely depicting animals, but were modeling functional flying machines they had witnessed or conceptualized. Could these be ancient toys cleverly designed to soar through the air, or are they echoes of a lost understanding of aerodynamics, a practical knowledge that was never fully developed? The true answer may lie somewhere in the middle, in the space between literal interpretation and symbolic meaning. These golden artifacts challenge us to consider the nature of ancient creativity itself. Perhaps the Quimbaya masters, through generations of observing the natural world, intuitively grasped aerodynamic principles and embedded them into their sacred art, creating objects that were both spiritually significant and, quite by accident, aerodynamically sound. They stand at a crossroads of perception, inviting us to ask whether we are discovering their advanced knowledge or projecting our own technological world onto their symbolic language. These 20 artifacts, scattered across continents and millennia, weave a tapestry of common themes that challenge our very perception of history. We repeatedly encounter the haunting specter of lost technologies, where a single, sophisticated object stands alone with no lineage of development, no surrounding industry to explain its creation. We see the crucial, often random role of environmental factors in preservation, where a shipwreck's cold depths or a desert's arid climate become accidental time capsules, saving a fragile mechanism or a delicate textile from the decay that consumed all its contemporaries. And we witness a powerful human tendency, our own innate drive to seek patterns and assign meaning to the unexplained, to see a light bulb in a lotus flower or an aircraft in a stylized bird. This divergence in interpretation creates a fundamental debate about how we read the past. Researchers like Graham Hancock look at this collective evidence and see a grand, unified story, a map pointing to a sophisticated global civilization in prehistory, a mother culture whose fragments we are only now rediscovering. From this perspective, these artifacts are not isolated anomalies but surviving pieces of a vast, forgotten puzzle. The counterpoint, championed by many mainstream historians and scientists, applies the principle of Occam's razor, suggesting the simplest explanation that fits the available evidence is usually the correct one. They argue that an object like the Antikythera Mechanism, while astonishing, is a brilliant outlier, a product of known Greek knowledge pushed to its limits, not proof of a lost super-civilization. They see the Quimbaya jets as masterful stylization of nature, not blueprints for ancient aviation. So what do these conflicting patterns truly tell us? They reveal that history is not a fixed record, but a narrative constantly being written and rewritten. It is shaped not only by the hard evidence we unearth, but by the imagination we use to interpret it. Our understanding of the past is a conversation between the artifacts we find and the questions we dare to ask. This does not mean all theories are equally valid, but that a space for wonder is essential for discovery. The true value of these inexplicable artifacts may not be in providing definitive answers, but in the questions they force us to confront. They invite us to hold two ideas in balance: a sense of awe at the sheer ingenuity of our ancestors, and a commitment to the rigorous, patient work of critical inquiry. In that delicate space between wonder and scrutiny, we may yet find a richer, more complete, and infinitely more surprising story of human achievement. From the intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the soaring forms of the Quimbaya Artifacts, these 20 objects stand as a collective challenge to a simple story of human progress. They are not merely old curiosities, but profound questions cast in metal, stone, and gold. Each one suggests that the timeline of innovation is not a straight, upward climb, but a landscape of hills and valleys, with entire peaks of achievement that were somehow lost to memory. They remind us that history is less a finished book and more a living conversation, one where every new discovery can rewrite a chapter we thought we understood. This collection of mysteries invites us to look at the ancient world not as a primitive prelude to our own time, but as a rich tapestry of independent genius and forgotten knowledge. What does it mean for our own civilization if such sophisticated craftsmanship could appear, flourish, and then vanish without a trace? These artifacts whisper of resilience, of the human capacity to solve immense problems with the tools at hand, and of the fragile nature of knowledge itself. Perhaps their greatest lesson is about humility, pushing us to question the stories we have been told and to remain open to the possibility that our ancestors were far more ingenious than we often give them credit for. So as we reflect on these puzzles from the past, we are left to wonder what other secrets still lie buried, waiting for a curious mind to uncover them. What forgotten skills or revolutionary ideas might be hidden just beneath our feet, holding insights that could inspire our own future? We would love to hear which of these artifacts captured your imagination the most. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you are eager for more journeys into the unknown, subscribe to continue exploring the endless surprises the past holds for those willing to look closer.